are talking Nuda per SATANA, also known as Nude for Satan. This is a 1974 horror exploitation movie and one that is bound to get me flagged on YouTube. Nude for Satan. Okay, so this is a bizarre Italian movie which is kind of like an art house sex horror weird film, to be honest. And the story, if you can call it that, has these two people, these two individuals, a doctor who is trying to kind of find a patient's house, ends up getting in an accident with this other car that has this woman Susan in there. Now, she appears to be somewhat hurt, so essentially they both end up at this particular castle, although they go at separate times. And when they go there, they find that there's kind of a doppelganger for the other one. So Susan finds that there is someone who looks like this Peter and vice versa. But they appear to be somewhat kind of old-fashioned, should we say, and a little bit of different personality, even having different names. Along that, we have a couple of other sort of characters who seem to be very kind of strange, and this particular castle seems to have some odd decor, let me just kind of say that. And it appears that maybe this couple has died. They're kind of saying somewhat in purgatory. Maybe this castle has some type of supernatural secret, or it's just a dream. What the hell is going on? I have no idea. So let's talk about what works first of all in Nude for Satan. All right, so lots of flesh, lots of 70s flesh on this one. So there is actually multiple cuts of this one. The most extended and uncut version does feature scenes of, not simulated sex, probably, if that makes sense. We do have full kind of like, oral sex, things like that, and not simulated, they're actually kind of doing it. So it is kind of almost a porn film, to be honest, although most cuts of this have those kind of scenes edited out, albeit there's still a lot of nudity here. So if you do want kind of lots of hairy 70s nudity, this is a movie for you to check out. It is very bizarre, and to be honest with you, I think the filmmaker wants to have, deliberately so, a bizarre and kind of trippy film, because our characters, our two protagonists, they don't really know what's kind of going on, and we as the audience, I have to say, don't know what's really kind of going on either. So we're kind of there with them, and we just see these bizarre sort of like situations. I mean, when, for example, Peter goes into the house, it's all kind of knackered and got cobwebs, and the butler is laying on the floor with a knife in his neck for some reason. But when the woman goes in there, it's in much better condition and stuff like this, and it's just lots of bizarre things. We have a random kind of giant spider scene. It's just a lot of weird stuff going on. So it's certainly a very kind of trippy movie. Now, obviously a mid-70s Italian movie, I suppose you'd expect nothing less. So if you just want some off-the-wall bonkers Euro exploitation horror, this one I feel may tick a few boxes. It's visually somewhat interesting, I have to say. And there are some decent kind of shots from a kind of technical perspective, cinematography-wise, set design, things like this, and it still has a kind of somewhat of a kind of cool Gothic look to it, which would lend itself to a somewhat kind of spooky horror film. Okay, but let me just kind of transition to what doesn't work, because the truth of the matter is with this film, it's just complete nonsense. It's just an experience. It's lots of scenes that are put together that are very incoherent, and I don't know really what the kind of the message is trying to get here. The filmmaker is trying to kind of portray here. It's some type of like purgatory, or a dream, or whether there's someone's pulling the strings. It doesn't really make it clear, and when you're watching it, you don't really understand what is going on, why these things are happening. Why is there kind of doppelgangers and things like this? It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And I have to say, it's so over the top in regards to some of the kind of the acting here as well. Obviously, it's an Italian movie, but the kind of the over the topness of some of the kind of like the weird and kind of kooky characters. I think Peter seems relatively grounded, but these kind of the other denizens of this castle just seem like weird and bizarre for being weird and kind of bizarre sake. And because the narrative is just so weird and kind of out there and bizarre, there's very little to kind of like grapple onto. It just doesn't really have any type of real narrative in it, to be honest. So you're struggling to think, I'm engaged in the story, because there really isn't a story. It's just a bunch of scenes that are loosely kind of connected together that have some cool imagery, and that's kind of the best I can say about this movie. I have to be honest, although I feel that this movie still might be appreciated by some people, those of you who like kind of the exploitation and kind of weird 70s kookiness may still like this film, but as a film, as a narrative, cohesive story, it just doesn't work. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.